morning. We're glad all of you are here. And today we have Chaplain Joshua, who is the director and chaplain for the Center for Muslim Life here at Duke University. So we're so thankful that he is here today to share some information and insight with us about Islam. So I'm going to let you come up and use with me so they're out of your way. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I begin with the name of God, who's most gracious, most merciful. His mercy is infinite. His mercy is continuous. I begin by greeting you with the greetings of peace. Peace be upon to all of you. In Arabic, we say Assalamu alaikum. And I want to start by making it clear that I am obviously one person, one mind, one opinion, out of about 2 billion people that identify in this faith tradition. So when you leave here, you really can't say you know anything about Islam and Muslims. But what you can say is, I learned from this guy that Muslims believe this or Muslims believe that. And I may re-emphasize that throughout my talk because I think at times you might forget. Maybe I'm projecting on you because I tend to forget, but that's very important because I have a burden that I carry with me as I talk, that some of my beliefs are not in line with the rest of the people that I know in this faith tradition. Some of my teachers I disagree with, and I consider them my teachers, and I still study from them. So the burden is when I talk to people, do I tell them what 99.9% of people in my faith tradition believe? Or do I tell them what I believe? And so I'll try to do a little bit of both of that to honor that responsibility that I think I have to myself, my own conscience, and as well as representing here to teach people about this faith tradition. That's my intro. So we begin. And they had some wonderful questions for me today, like to get the conversation going. I'm going to go over some of those questions and I'll start talking about them. And I want this to be, I don't want you to hold your questions until the end because it's not a class. I don't see a lot of notes, you know. So when it comes to your mind, just raise your hand. I'll address it and then we'll keep going. Okay. So feel free to interrupt, question at any point in time if something comes to your mind. So some of the things that I'll be covering, one of the things was, what are the most common misconceptions about my faith? What do I wish everyone knew about this faith? Okay, time out. See, it actually says religion. What are the most common misconceptions about your religion that you encounter? What do you wish everyone knew about your religion? Well, you may or may not have noticed that as I'm talking, I don't use Muslim a lot. And I don't believe the Quran has a word for religion, even though it's often translated as religion. So even in my talking, I feel burdened in my theological perspectives. So I'll just talk about 2 of those before I continue with the questions so that you can understand why I'm avoiding certain terminology. Deen is an Arabic word. Deen. Deen al-Islam. That means this is the deen of Islam. But those are 2 Arabic words, one of which doesn't get translated very often. I'm frustrated with that Islam and Muslim don't get translated because they are Arabic words. And when they don't get translated and people don't speak Arabic, it causes a lot of confusion, even with people in my own faith tradition, I would argue. So deen is a word that means a path, a way of living. It also has some roots in accountability. So I believe the word means the path that you've chosen. And this path is a path of submission. That's what Islam means. Islam means submission with the concept that you're submitting to God, right? And so I've been filtering as I'm talking to you. I apologize. And the reason why I don't use Muslim a lot, and it's very difficult as a Muslim not using the word Muslim as I'm talking to people, especially with people in my own faith. They start doing that confused dog thing. Right? Not because I believe 99.9% of the Muslims in the world would say a Muslim is somebody who believes in God and they believe that Muhammad is the messenger of God. Okay? Those two is what makes you a Muslim. 99.9 and some other nines. I need people to understand that. Because when you walk away, that's what you want to tell other people. But if you ask me, this 0.000001, Muslim is broader than that. Muslim linguistically means one who submits to the will of God. And I believe if you ask that question to a lot of people on earth, they would identify as such. They would say, yeah, I submit to God. But when you change the language, and that language is associated with a lot of other things, people tend to run away from that. So, what do you wish everyone knew about your religion? How does your religion affect you on a day-to-day basis? What does religion and family life look to you? Does your religion seek converts, and why? Or why not? What is your perspective on other faiths? What is the origin, the destiny, morality, purpose? All in the out. All right.
With the rest of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll just drink coffee and talk about the good old times. So we talked about terms, Islam, Muslim, Deen. These are things that I go over with the people in my community. If I had to say what I really want people to know about this faith tradition is that we believe in one God, and we believe that God created mankind for a purpose, and that purpose was for them to know him and to worship him. That is the core of our belief. After that, it's about how is God communicating with mankind to remind them of that purpose so that they don't forget that we are forgetful creatures. We are distracted by the glitter of the world, and we forget. I myself am getting to the age where I remember something, I start heading to the kitchen, and by the time I get there, I forgot what I went to the kitchen for. So very, very much so, we can forget about our purpose in life. And we believe that there's signs and everything from as far out as technology can go in the universe, as far in as technology can go into our body. We believe that you will keep discovering the signs of God and proof of God. And all of those signs are there for you to continue to be guided back to God. So, what is our relationship with other faith traditions? We believe that, well, let me just start with the what I call the big three, what is known as the Abrahamic faith. Abraham and his descendants that lead to Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad is a descendant of Abraham as well. We believe that all of those, and it goes beyond Abraham, right? So we believe that the Adam from the first, allegedly, first human that was created, that there's this concept of Islam. There's this concept of God created you to know him and to worship him. And your descendants, that's what they're supposed to be doing. But when we get to Abraham, and he was a man of God, in the Quran, he's called a friend of God. He had two sons. One of them had a lot of prophetic people in their family, from Isaac, whose son was Jacob. And Jacob had 12 sons. And that became what in Arabic is called Bani Israel, the children of Jacob. And man, they had so many prophets, all of which we believe in, all of which the Muslims and the people who follow the Quran believe in those prophets. And most of the Quran is about the story of Moses. Okay, most of the Quran is about the story of Moses and God's relationship with Bani Israel, the children of Jacob. A lot of the Quran talks about Jesus. Muslims' understanding of Jesus is he was born of a Virgin Mary. He was strengthened with the Spirit of God, and he had miracles that were given to him as a sign to convince people that he was a messenger of God and that they should follow him. Some of those miracles included in the Quran being able to speak when he was born. So when the people tried to accuse his mother of inappropriate behavior, like, where did you get this baby from? We thought you were a righteous woman. You come from this family. What's going on with you? She was inspired by God to just put forth the baby, and Jesus spoke to them. He said, I'm a messenger, and my mother's a righteous woman. And that was the first, or other than being born without a father, that was the second miracle that he was known of. We read in the Quran that Jesus was able to pull clay together off of the earth, form it into the shape of a bird, breathe into it, and the bird would come to life and fly away. We believe that that was a gift given to him by God. We believe that Jesus was able to touch people and heal them of their blindness, heal them of their sickness, and sometimes even raise them from the dead. We believe that that was gifts given to him by God. Now, all of that is taught to us in the Quran. So whether or not it had it in the Bible or not, we would believe that because it's in our book. Some people say, no questions yet. I'm gonna keep going. I like to talk. So you're gonna have to interrupt me if you have. And online too, if you raise your hand, they'll let me know, okay? That Muhammad just stole a little bit, you know? He took a little bit from the Torah, he took a little bit from the Bible, and then etch-a-sketch, and he put it in this new book called the Quran. Muslims really don't have a problem with that accusation, other than Muhammad did it, because we believe that all of that came from God. So we believe that the Quran is supposed to have the same stuff that's in these other books that came from God. The only reason we wouldn't believe that it should have the same stuff is if we believed that we were a different thing, that we were here to say something different. But we believe we were here taught to say the same thing that Jesus, John the Baptist, David, Solomon, you name it, all the way back, we're teaching the same thing. So the stories are in there. In fact, the Quran claims that one of the reasons it was revealed was to correct some of the things that have been said before that maybe have been changed over time, and to verify, to whatever was said that was true is like, yes, that is true, and you must verify it. So others who are critical of this faith tradition say Muhammad just stole it. People within the faith tradition say it has a lot of similarities because we believe it's from the same source. One of the things that I want people to know, I believe some of the misconceptions about Islam, and I'll try to again to be balanced in my 99.9 versus Joshua Salaam. Let's do a quick quiz. Quick quiz. What's one of the things that I'm on a small minority island and the majority of other Muslims are over here? I've already told you something. What was that? I said 99.99. You got to make sure they're staying with me. Who remembers? There, it's there. It's about the, I'll help you out a little bit. Yes?
Something about a path?
Yes. It's about a definition of deen and this, and what it means to be Muslim, right? What it means to be Muslim. I am on a very small island. Yes?
Believing in God and Muhammad is his prophet.
Yes, that's the 99.9999. Yes. So when you walk away from the room, you need to know that's what Muslims believe. But if somebody asks you, do all Muslims believe that? You can say, no, I know one that just believes that anyone.
Nelson had a question.
Nelson had a question. Yes.
You're helping us recall that your 0.1% that we should follow is that your definition is you're one who follows God.
Yes, submits to God. Yeah, submits to God. And if you, I argue that if people read the Quran, they might come to the same opinion as I have, but alas, it's good to be lonely sometimes.
While we're in the pause, so what you're saying is that Islam would believe that in the Abrahamic faith that the last prophet is Muhammad. So after Jesus, that Jesus was a prophet, and then Muhammad was just the last. Is that correct? Or
What's the question?
that the correlation to the history of the Abrahamic faith, Abraham, Moses, as a prophet is what you had, and then just Muhammad as the last.
Yeah. So I learned in my studies that it's difficult to talk with people of the Christian faith about prophethood because the way that they use the term, language is everything, right? How you use language is everything. I'm having a conversation with some of my Jewish friends about what Zionism means to me and what Zionism means to them, right? And how we use it. I might be offending them without even knowing it. Prophethood is a word like that between Christians and Muslims that is an issue. From my experience and from the Christian tradition, you can have a prophetic voice. You know, you can call this person was a prophet, but you're not really meaning prophet like a Muslim means prophethood. Okay, so from a Muslim perspective, a prophet after God is as high as you can get. There's nothing higher than a prophet. And a prophet is different than a messenger. A messenger is a prophet and they get scripture. Whereas a prophet has a relationship with God, direct communication with God in some way, shape, or form, but doesn't necessarily get a book, okay? So Jesus was a prophet and a messenger because he was given the gospel, what we call the Injil. Muhammad was a prophet and a messenger. Moses was a prophet and a messenger. John the Baptist was a prophet, but didn't get a book, right? But as far as their status amongst each other, they're all as high as you can go without being God, okay? So I just say that to be mindful of the word just. Like I would never put just in front of prophethood. And I know that the way we speak about prophethood is different than maybe Christians understand it. But yes, we believe, well, actually, most Muslims believe that Muhammad was the last prophet and messenger. There are some Muslims that believe that there was another prophet after Muhammad, but not another messenger. And those Muslims get attacked and they get discriminated against. In some countries, it's illegal to identify as that group, and that's Muslims who are considered the Ahmadiyya Muslims, right? So, yeah. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Yes.
How close did we come to answering your question about the 0.111%?
I think we got it. It was about you said Dean. It was about a path, and the connection to that is that the path that I believe in is submission to God. That is the path that God expects of humankind. Now, we can argue about whether we're doing that or not. This is the 0.1%. It's not even 0.1. It's 0.000. Okay, but we can argue about am I doing it or not? And I say you are not. You are doing that. But the only people that really know is you and God whether or not you are truly submitting yourself to God. And so I don't think I have the right to come in and say, no, you're not submitting yourself to God. It's, you want to bet? You want to fight over it? You want to like? And so he also said about the term Muslim, where 99.9999 would say Muslim, the definition of Muslim is somebody who believes in God and believes that Muhammad is the last messenger of God. So I want to make sure that you guys know that, but just remember me on my island, okay? Just remember me. All right. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Under your eyes say no, but
Well,
your head says that. He's like,
And it might kind of be coming. Or I can try to restate it and you can correct or clarify.
Sure.
So, and it's more just trying to put into context what you're saying about Jesus, which was, or the other prophet and or messengers. And
Sure.
so essentially Christians that just kind of stopped at Jesus, we've missed the latest revelations and that the final authority lies with Muhammad. Like, that would be accurate, not in a competitive way, but just in a factual way.
That's in what we believe.
What you, yeah, what we-
Mhm.
is that correct?
Yeah, we would say that the scripture that was given to David is what any believer who believed that he was from God, that's what they should be following until the next scripture came. And then if that person sincerely believed in that, they have to start following that. And so let's say that's the Torah, okay, with the revelation of Moses. And he came with enough signs for people to believe him. Okay, then you have a responsibility. You saw that, you saw the signs, you got to follow it, right? It's not that you disbelieve in that, but this is the prophet that I believe God has sent. Now, when Jesus comes, he came with more than enough signs for people to follow him. You got to believe in him. You got to follow him, right? It's not that you reject the Torah. And so Muslims would argue that that's what the mistake of the Jewish tradition was, that they rejected him and they should have accepted him. We do believe that he was the Messiah, right? So they should have accepted him. And then after him, we would also believe that now Muhammad has came. We can't disbelieve in Jesus and in the Bible, but we believe we have enough evidence in the Quran that we believe that this man was from God and that we have to follow this message, which is not, we don't believe is different than what was preached before. It's the same thing. Oh, okay, with the clarification that we believe that Christians now believe in most Christians believe in the kind of triune concept of God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. So the Quran says,
Question on the word Nelson on.
what did he say?
I was just gonna add a tangent. I guess the only, or at least the best known group of Christians who still have an open canon are the Church of Latter-day Saints, I guess frequently called Mormons. So they erred by skipping over Muhammad and going straight to Joseph Smith, if I'm remembering right.
Okay, so that's a good example. So Mormons would believe in another prophet and messenger because they believe he brought scripture, right? Okay, so if we're using some of the same language, that's good. When I studied Christian history in seminary, I graduated from Hartford Seminary in Connecticut. I learned about early followers of Christ who believed like I believe. But then there was like two major theologians who disagreed about the concept of God, and was Jesus divine or was he not? And so two legitimate opinions in Christian tradition, and the Roman government kind of took a side, and this side died out. But we don't believe what we're teaching is like completely different from what all followers of Christ have ever believed. Yeah.
So while we're in the lane, just one more follow-up question then.
I'm good, man.
So from the overall Islamic perspective or your perspective, which could be unique, is Muhammad the final and last prophet and messenger, or could there still be like an open, a future iteration or?
I joined the 99.9% with that opinion, that he is the final prophet and messenger. I'm on the big island with that,
Okay.
with the exception of the Ahmadiyya Muslims.
Okay, got it. That's
Okay,
good.
yeah.
Okay, all right. Thanks for clarifying.
Thank you. And please, I feed off of the questions.
Just for clarity's sake, Jesus, do you believe Jesus is the Son of God?
No,
Okay.
unless when we talk language, unless you use the language of the Bible. So if we're using the language of the Bible, then I would say yes, because blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. There's this language in the Bible where humans are considered children of God, and David was a son of God, and you shall be a child of God, and our Father who art in heaven. So that's the type of way that they speak. And if you say that, then of course Jesus would be one of them. He's also a son of God. But if you say literal,
But not divine.
not divine. No. Well, not divine, like he's as high as we believe you can go.
Okay.
without.
Before you get to
without
God.
But
being
not,
God.
not being equal to God.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
You had started to mention something about the Trinity. What were you saying? I thought you had started something about. the Trinity.
Yeah, like early followers of Christ weren't unified on whether Jesus was divine or not, according to my Christian professors and the books that we read. There was a split that some started to teach that Jesus was divine, and some said, no, that's not what Jesus taught, and you shouldn't be saying that. And I was saying that, so our beliefs aren't disaligned with some of the early followers of Christ.
Might get around to this, but I want to make sure you do.
Thank
The
you.
differences between Sunni and Shia.
Okay, good. Okay, let's go to that next and make sure that I've cleared that up, because I definitely, however minority I am, I don't want you leaving the room and be like, we met a Muslim that said Jesus is the Son of God. Where's that guy at so we can go get him? You know? So just to clarify, if you use the language of the Bible, I myself and most people who are in this faith tradition will not have a problem with saying that language about Jesus. But if the person has in their mind that I am also a child of God, I'm a son of God, and then this is a daughter of God, and then there's other people in the Bible who are referred to as children of God, and there's other sons of God in the Bible. But if a person really means that, no, when we talk about Jesus' uniqueness, he's unique because he is the actual Son of God, then we have to, in our faith tradition, according to Quran, like the earth shakes when you associate anybody with God, and God, the way that he talks about Jesus and his mother, he says, yes, I gave him this, I gave him this, I gave him this, and he was born of a miraculous birth. But then he says, but I created Adam. Adam didn't have a mother. He says, so God says, so Adam's birth is more miraculous than Jesus, and all of them are my creation. So that's kind of how we have to come from it, from our faith tradition. But Sunni and Shi'i, some people believe that the other one are not Muslim, right? Thank God, a lot of people believe that they both are Muslim. They both are submitters to God. But the main thing that they disagree with is who was supposed to be the person after Muhammad. Okay? Shi'is believe that Ali, who was a family member of the Prophet, that the Prophet had designated him that you are going to be next. You're going to be my successor to lead the community. And Sunnis believe, no, that's not the case. It was as it should have been, that it was a companion named Abu Bakr was the first leader after him, then Umar, then Uthman, and then Ali. Ali was the fourth one. Shi'i say, yeah, that's what happened, but these three disrespected what the Prophet had said, and that's why we don't respect them, because it was supposed to be Ali. So from that comes big tensions, because these three from the Sunni tradition, Abu Bakr, Uthman, and Ali, I'm sorry, Abu Bakr, Umar, and Uthman are considered some of the most righteous people after the Prophet, right? They were his close companions. They can do wrong, but they can almost do no wrong. We should be following them. They are people of paradise, and anything that they say has a lot of weight. Where the Shi'i may say, we don't think so, because we believe in this event. And Sunnis, you know that this event happened, but they just disagree on what that event meant. But where the Prophet said, they believe he said, you are to be the next one. And so they don't respect these people's narrations of testimony. And so when you don't accept statements from these people, there's a lot of disagreement that start to emerge, because after the Quran, all of the tradition is about people saying what they heard the Prophet say. So if she was a companion of the Prophet, and she always used to go to the market with him to see him, and she overheard his conversation, and she's known to be a very trusted person, and she tells you that I heard the Prophet yesterday say that drinking coffee is shady. You know, it could get you fidgety sometimes. Exactly. It can get you fidgety sometimes and take you out of the mindset of God. You say, really, the Prophet said that? And then you tell her, and all of you are known to be honest people, then it goes down in our tradition as a hadith, as a sound hadith. But what if she was known to be, she was always stealing coffee, and everybody knew that she was stealing coffee. Well, then by the time it gets to him, people say, oh, that hadith is weak. We don't really take it because, or she was known to be righteous person, but we couldn't remember your name. If we couldn't remember your name, that hadith is weak, right? So imagine if you believe that these people were dishonest people, you don't take narrations from them. So that's the main divide from Sunni and Shia, and then it starts to become theological and ideological over years and years and years, but that's kind of where it starts. And thank you for bringing the coffee back. Yeah.
I don't know.
Follow up?
No, it's a different subject. Have you made the Hajj?
I have.
Can you tell us, what is the significance of the Kaaba?
Okay. Let's just officially say this is open Q&A now, because I feel like I've done my job, which was to loosen you up enough where you can just engage me and then we can have a conversation, right? So we've kind of hit some big things, but now let's just, whatever you have, bring it up. Hajj. It is one of the 5 pillars, what we call pillars of the faith. The testimony of faith is first. Like I believe in God and I believe that Muhammad is the messenger of God. Okay, so that's a pillar of faith. Then prayer is another pillar. Most generally Muslims understand they should be praying 5 times a day. Most Muslims, right? Fasting. There's a verse in the Quran that says, fasting is prescribed to you as it was prescribed to the people before you, right? Then charity is a pillar of faith. Actually, it's not, some people say it's not considered charity. It's a different word. Zakat means purification, because charity is you're a charitable person. You see somebody be like, oh, you know what? God would want this. Here's some help. Here's a car, here's a house, here's some money. Zakat is different. Zakat means your money is kind of dirty money until you purify it. There's a percentage of it that really doesn't even belong to you, right? So God has given this money to you or property as a trust to take care of it, and you're responsible for taking a percentage of that and giving it to the poor. It belongs to them, and you're responsible for giving it. So zakat is different than charity, right? So zakat is a pillar of faith, and then Hajj is the 5th pillar. If you can afford it, once in your life, make a pilgrimage to Mecca. And the Kaaba, the significance of that is it's a house, kind of mystical. Some people say it was built before Abraham, but I would say most Muslims would say that this house was built by Abraham and his son Ishmael, right? That they built this house together for the purpose of prayer, purpose of worshiping God. And over time, Muslims were commanded in the Quran to face that direction. No matter where you're on earth, when it's time to pray, turn towards the Kaaba and make your prayer. Not that you're praying to the Kaaba, because I got that question one time at a high school. I never thought of it before. The student says, why do you guys pray to the black box? I was like, pray to the black box? Oh. And I could, like, from his perspective, there's all these people around the box. It's like, why are they worshiping that black box? And me being born and raised in the tradition, even though it's so obvious, I never thought of it as worshiping the box. For us, that's the direction that we pray. And so people who are around it start there. You can go inside it and pray as well. And then as you go around the earth, this kind of this symmetry of people, that's where people are directing their prayers. And so to go there and experience that is kind of overwhelming. People are all dressing alike. The men just kind of dress in 2 white cloths. So it doesn't matter if you're a king or if you're dirt poor, you wouldn't know. You're stripping yourself of everything else. You're just wearing white cloths, and you're doing these rituals, following the tradition of Abraham and his wife Hagar. Some of the rituals that they did when they first built that house. We repeat those rituals, and we do some other things that the Prophet taught us. And it's just a very unifying event to be there with people of so many backgrounds. It takes a lot of patience too, because culture is a clash of cultures. One of the things that I realized was I went to get something to eat, And literally, my legs are touching the counter. So in America, I'm next, right? I wait, and there was like 75 hands coming from behind me, and and the guy's like, I'm like, hey man, I'm next, you know? That was a different culture, you know? Or if I'm in a line for a bathroom and there's 50 people, I'm like, okay, 50 people, I'm the 50th person, and then 17 people come, hey, you know? I feel like I'm being violated, but culturally, you know, there's different cultures. So you kind of got to manage those cultural clashes of people coming from all over the world and still remain focused on the worship of God. But yeah, I've been there twice and it was an amazing experience. Thank you for that question.
So maybe touch a little bit on the attitudes of the normal Muslim community toward other faiths, and perhaps even touch on some of the more radical attitudes, radical Islam and so on toward.
Yeah. So there's another term in the Quran called kafir. And if you read the Quran in English, it's translated as disbeliever. If you ask a person of knowledge, they would agree with me. And I'm saying this because I've tested it out. I've traveled the world. I've been to maybe 25 countries. I always bring up these internal controversial things and talk to people. Universally, I've gotten this, that people agree with this. The word means one who rejects the truth, okay? A kafir is one who rejects the truth. However, over time, a lot of the Muslim community translates it as disbelievers and uses it to refer to anybody who is not us, right? So if you don't believe in God and believe that Muhammad is the messenger of God, then you're a kafir. A lot of Muslims, not all. And so this wouldn't be a 99.9% versus the 0.001. This is more of like I don't know the numbers, but I don't know who's the majority, okay? But for sure, a lot of Muslims would say that the people in this room are kafirs, okay? Which is problematic for me because of the way that the Quran talks about kafirs. But that's what they believe. That's what they believe, and they have sources to justify that. And there's a lot of Muslims over here who would not classify this room as kafirs, I being one of them. And I feel good because this is a bigger island. It's a lot of people on this island. So whether you're Christian, Jewish, Hindu, Buddhist, Zoroastrian, you know, other faith traditions, those are kind of two separate ways that people will look at you. However, there is a smaller group that is understood to be people of the book, which get a special privilege understanding in the Quran. And that group is considered to be, by most Muslims, 99.9, Jews and Christians. So Jews and Christians are considered people of the book, and Muslims have a special relationship with them, that they're not like those other people. They're people of the book. And I'm still on a 0.0001 island on that, so I don't even need to discuss it. That'll just confuse you. So let's just go with the 99.9%, this one, that Jews and Christians are considered people of the book. In Arabic, that's Ahl al-Kitab. And there's a lot of beautiful language referring to them in the Quran. And sometimes warning language, like, you people of the book, you know that you should be doing this. You know what your scripture says, you know. And then sometimes it's like, the people of the book are some of the best people. They're doers of good. They will have their reward with God, you know, things like that. So it's kind of, I don't know if I'm confused by a core group of people of the book versus how two different groups of Muslims might view the other as kafir or a different believer in God.
We're not so bad.
You're not so bad, man. You're not so bad. Depending on who you ask. Yes.
So I've already made a couple of like faux pas. I have a couple of people that work with me that are Muslim, and so they're so gracious, you know, very kind. I just want to know, like, what are some of the social norms that we should be aware of? Maybe certain holidays that they're celebrating. One of my faux pas was my assistant is Muslim. She's new. And I was like, oh, you should eat the chicken. Like, it's good. Blah, blah. And she was like, I can't eat it. And I felt real bad later. I didn't understand. So, but again, everyone's been gracious. I just don't want to keep making big mistakes, big
Yeah.
obvious mistakes.
You and I are gonna do that all our lives, When it comes with graciousness and love, most people are okay with it, trust me. So don't think that you're making any mistake. Because on that issue, just with the chicken, we don't agree. About 50-50, maybe 60-40. But some people say that meat has not been killed by somebody who's Muslim that killed it saying, in the name of God, I take this animal's life, right? And therefore, if it hasn't been killed like that, it's forbidden to them, almost like a kind of a kosher dietary restriction. Some Muslims say, since it was probably killed by people of the book, right? If it was people of the book who did it, we have verses in the Quran that we understand that means then we can eat it. So there's a disagreement in the Muslim community of some people believe, no, they have to say Bismillah, which is in the name of God. And some people say, no, as long as it's killed by people of the book. So some people would eat that chicken. I probably would. And then some people wouldn't touch it. Yeah. So I deal with these new things every day in my office because our office is one of the most diverse communities on campus. The Muslim community is worldwide. It's 2 billion people. And 2, they don't all agree. And 3, they don't all agree on religion. And then they come from different cultures. And they may not realize where their culture has turned into religion. So they've been raised up all their life thinking that this is the religion. And they think, I don't know what I'm talking about when I say, no, that's kind of your culture. And then so how do I manage this space? So I make mistakes all the time. Shaking of the hands is another one. Some Muslims will shake hands with the opposite sex, opposite gender. Some Muslims feel like that is a forbidden act, right? So I generally tell people when you meet a Muslim, give all that positive energy, but wait for them to see if they're going to extend. If they extend, okay, shake their hand. If they don't extend, that means they probably don't want to shake your hand.
I made that mistake on a panel. I was sitting next to a gentleman and I was all excited. And then I was like, hey, how you doing? And I stuck my hand out. And then the person on the other side, Kay, she was like, I was like, I didn't understand what I was doing wrong. I was like, am I talking too loud? Like, what is happening now?
Right.
So yeah, I've had a couple of
What did he do? What was the response?
His response, he just held his hand and he nodded and smiled. I mean,
Sometimes we go like
never
this.
made me feel bad, other
Right.
than me feeling bad that I wasn't aware, but he
Right.
just kind of held his hand to himself and then he just nodded. And this was before COVID, COVID, you kind of understand now.
Right,
like,
right.
You may not want to shake your hand.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, my thing was I shake hands with the opposite sex. I don't believe it's wrong. I respect the community that does, but I don't hug, right? So, but in the South, I get people like, oh, I'm a hugger, come here. I'm like, ah. Yes, 2 hands.
You mentioned Abraham and Ishmael,
Yes,
and then you mentioned wife Hagar.
yes.
Where is Isaac and Sarah in the Muslim religion?
They are legitimate children and legitimate lineage that we believe are blessed, and we follow all of that lineage, right? So Sarah, who was the first wife of Abraham, had a child, Isaac, and then Isaac had a child, Jacob, and Jacob had 12 tribes. We believe in all of that. Okay. We accept all of them. The difference is, I want you guys to check. Some Christians, I don't know if 99.9 or what, believe that Hagar was an illegitimate wife, and therefore her son was an illegitimate child that took him out of the lineage and the grace that was promised to Abraham. However, the Bible does say that it was his wife, and the Bible does promise him with a blessed nation. So I challenge you guys to go read that story again. And parts of the Bible are like the Quran, where the story is not linear. For instance, the Quran is not a linear book, except for the story of Joseph. Okay, there's a chapter in the Quran called the story of Joseph, and there's a chapter in the Quran called the story of the chapter of Maryam. All right, so we have a lot of these chapters in the Quran, but Joseph is kind of like in one chapter. All the other stories, there's a piece here, there's a piece here. And it's not necessarily in order. And then there's a piece here and a piece here. And you won't have the whole picture until you read the whole Quran. I think that was like the plan of God. You know, if you want to know the whole story, you got to read the whole book. Don't be trying to take little notes, which we get into trouble with, and other people get into trouble with, coming to the book and saying, aha, look what Muslims say about this. And run away with it. And then, so most of that stuff, and I'll probably maybe mention one or two of them. If you just read 3 verses before, 3 verses after, or if you read the whole book, it will make sense to you, right? So, okay, so I don't have to use an example. I think people get me, but so yes, the story of, like I said, most of this, the Quran is about the story of Moses, but also really Beni Israel, the children of Jacob, is most of the Quran. Yeah, and God is. Right now, my doctorate is in ministry, but I want to get a doctorate of philosophy, a PhD in story of the children of Jacob in the Quran. It fascinates me because God calls out to them so much in the Quran. In Arabic is Ya Bani Israel, which is in Arabic a loving call, like, oh my children, oh my son, oh my loved servant, right? He's always calling to Bani Israel in the Quran. Yeah, Bani Israel, remember this, remember when I did this for you. And so I'm like, okay, let me study these people more, right? Because I don't feel like I know enough about them. And what's the difference between the word Yahud and Bani Israel? Yahud is translated as Jewish, but I argue it doesn't mean Jewish. Grammatically, it means either repentant ones or guided ones, right? And I've been asking my Arabic professors, grammatically what it means, not what it culturally means, and generation after generation, how people, and Christian too. The word for Christian in the Quran is Nasara, which doesn't mean Christian. We say Christian because we know who it's referring to, but grammatically it means the helpers. And I believe it's referring to the conversation between the companions of Christ and him when he asked them, who will be my helpers in the cause of God? And they say, we will be your helpers, right? And so the Quran is always referring to them as Nasara, the helpers of Christ. I just believe that's more beautiful language than just to say Christian, which actually some of my teachers say started out as a negative term to refer to the followers of Christ. But anyway, I think that was your question. I forget where I'm at. Where we at?
So I had a question.
Yes.
I want to hear your explanation because I had an 8-year-old student give me that. I would like to hear your explanation of Ramadan leading up to Eid.
Okay. Yeah. Depending on what type of Islam you follow, there are many different holidays. But the two that I would say all Muslims agree with are the two major Eids. Because there's other Eids, especially if you're from the Shi'i tradition, there's other Eids. But the two major ones are the Eid after Ramadan and the Eid after the pilgrimage to Mecca. So we talked about that as well, which is a celebratory time. The Eid is celebration. So there's a celebration at the end of Ramadan, a celebration after the end of the pilgrimage to Mecca. And Ramadan is 30 days, 29 or 30 days, because we go by a lunar month, which is 29 or 30. Never 28, never 31. Okay, so if you know, the Gregorian calendar will have to be adjusted eventually. I don't know when, but it will be no longer usable after a certain amount of time. We keep fixing it with leap year, but eventually it won't be useful. But the lunar calendar works every month, 29 or 30 days of getting up before dawn, eating or drinking whatever you're gonna eat, and then you don't eat or drink anything until the sun sets. You do that for 30 days. And at the end of that time, and then there's extra prayers at night that you're encouraged to say. And then at the end of that month, there's just food and presents and gifts and songs. And so, as the 8-year-old said, it's like your Christmas, Yeah. So that's kind of how it feels in the Muslim tradition. People look forward to it. So, yeah, and fasting is one of those pillars of the Muslim faith. This question and then here. I'm missing somebody there too. Let me go to the screen real quick and then I'll come back to you. Yes, Nelson.
I guess one of the radioactive topics that we hear about in current events are sensitivity about the image of Muhammad. And I've never heard it held up as being an extension of, don't make false idols, don't make an image of God. So I'm curious how the community views that. Is, when we have a stained glass window that has a cartoon image of God or a depiction of, dare I say, an unrealistic Western image of Jesus, is that equally sacrilegious?
Sacrilegious. I don't know if I understood the second part of your question. I'm gonna try to answer the first part. Yeah, I would say most Muslims would never depict Prophet Muhammad. Even in this movie called The Messenger, it's a famous movie called The Messenger. If you ever look it up, The Messenger, a movie about Prophet Muhammad, old movie. They never show him. The camera is always from his perspective. So he might be walking and the camera walks. And then people are talking to him, but the camera's on the person talking to the prophet. So you're like the prophet walking through the movie. They will never have a person who's playing Muhammad. Denzel Washington plays Muhammad. Tom Cruise plays Muhammad. They wouldn't have that. Most Muslims, but some Muslims have always had a picture of the prophet in their houses and in their homes. It's nothing wrong with them to depict the prophet. The minority of Muslims who would do that, I would say the majority wouldn't have his image up. And I think a lot of that comes not because we associated him with God, but there's a saying of the prophet through a narration that says that trying to make likenesses of the creation is looked down upon. And how people interpret that goes many ways. Some people say, so therefore don't even draw. Don't draw art. And if you're going to draw art, draw abstract, but don't try to recreate a human being or this. And definitely don't make a statue, right? So I would say me growing up, that felt like the dominant opinion. And some Muslims don't agree with that. They say, no, it's okay to draw because you're not trying to draw God, or you're not trying to say that I'm better than God. But there's been some disagreement about that. But yeah, there was a big story in the news about a Muslim student. I think she was a Somali student, and they kind of went at the school, and I don't know if they were suing, but they had a case because in the class they depicted a picture of the prophet, and she said that was sacrilegious and that was against her faith, and the school shouldn't be doing that. And the other Muslims were like, it's not so bad. But yeah, that's why the state tries to stay out of these religious stuff, right? We don't agree ourselves. There was a question here.
Just the word halal and what on food cards, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah. So if you see it on, and by the way, I remember something that I wanted people to know about the word Allah, because I thought that's what you were saying, but you're saying halal. So don't leave the room until I tell you what Allah is. Halal, if you remember, there was two groups here. One said, did that person say in the name of God, and were they of the Muslim tradition? If they did that, that meat is halal, which means permissible. Okay, halal is an Arabic word for meaning permissible. If there was, they say, okay, I can eat that. There's another group that says halal means not pork, not some of the other restrictions mentioned in the Quran about meat and animals that we aren't allowed to eat. And as long as it's not that, and it's been killed by people of the book, it's halal for us, meaning it's permissible for us. So these two groups disagree on what halal is. However, if you find a package that has halal on it, it means it's been killed in this way, right? Where somebody said, Bismillah, they said in the name of God, and they killed it. That's why that label is there, so that people know that this meat has been killed by a Muslim who has killed it in the name of God.
So would you eat meat not halal?
Me personally, I try not to, but yes, I do, but I limit it. For me, it's because in the Quran, not only does it say halal about the meat that we should eat, it also says tayyib, which is good. So I have a personal religious understanding that that means that the animal, before it even gets to the slaughterhouse, how was the animal treated, right? Was it raised well? Was it treated kindly? That to me goes together with halal and tayyib, good and permissible meat. And so I try to eat stuff that's also, what they say, free range animals, organic, you know. And if I had to choose, personally, I would go with the one that's more naturally raised, even if it wasn't killed by somebody that said Bismillah. Other people might switch it and say, I don't really care how it was raised, as long as somebody said Bismillah. So we have our differences. But as far as what you're asking about, what does that halal word mean when you see it on packages? It means that somebody said Bismillah in the name of God when they killed it. I'm out of time?
You have
Okay,
2 minutes if you want to address the.
I'm gonna
word
address
you
it.
told us.
And what were you gonna say?
Before you close, talk a little bit about the transition of the soul after death.
Mm,
Who goes up?
mm.
Who goes elsewhere?
Okay. So quickly, all I wanted you to know about Allah is, again, it is an Arabic word. It is an Arabic word that means God. Therefore, Christian Arabs use the word Allah. It is not something that just Muslims use. Because they speak Arabic, their Bible is written in Arabic, and if you read it, you will see the word Allah in the Christian Arab Bible. Okay, so some people try to say Allah is something different. Allah is an Arabic word that means God. To that, we know very little about the soul after death, but I would say the Quran and the Hadith give more details than any other faith tradition that I have come in contact with. Okay, so a few things that I'll tell you about is we treat the deceased body as if it's alive, right? That's where there's a lot of debate in the Muslim tradition about autopsies and what's allowed, because we don't know. We're taught that when the person gets put in the grave, they hear the people making prayers for them. They hear the footsteps as they walk away, right? So we carry the body as it's alive. We don't just unveil it and leave it naked. We have a sheet over it, and when we wash it, we put our hand under the sheet and wash the body so we don't expose the dead body. And we believe that everyone, pretty much, with a few exceptions, they reside in the grave and their soul, and there's a whole different life experience there that could be blessed or could be bad. But even if it's bad, it's considered that that's a way of God holding you accountable before you come to the next judgment. But at one point in time, everybody is raised up. Even if you were put in a furnace and your ashes were spread across the universe, everybody's called back and you're raised up to be held accountable for your actions on the day of judgment. And then it's up to God who goes where. Thank you. So much to say we didn't get to, but thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Means have to come back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you again for coming. Next week, we start the study of Advent. So if there's anybody here who is planning to study, I have one book for household, if I'm not giving you one. Okay. And then we are done, so have a lovely week. Thank you.
And ran out of recycling. Yeah.
It's my home, so.